All right, this is the Konica Hexar RF. I believe the RF stands for rangefinder. If it doesn't, wow. But that's what it stands for. It is a Leica M-mount rangefinder camera. All electronic. It has auto wind, auto rewind, auto advance. It has a vertically traveling metal shutter, some kind of metal, I don't know. I'm not a metallurgist. And it is the most advanced Leica M-mount film camera there is. It is an absolutely wonderful camera. I do not use it anymore because I got this little guy here as a congratulations to myself for getting a promotion at work, which I was later fired from. So I guess I should sell it and keep this, but I did just sell this because I'm not using it, and I don't really like to keep cameras that I am not using anymore. So with that said, let's sort of go over what exactly this camera is and why I think it is better than that camera over there, which is the Leica MP. This camera was produced sometime in the early 2000s, maybe 2001 to 2006. That might be the FM3A I'm thinking about. I honestly don't know when this was produced. I could look it up and put it in the video as a little text if I learn how to do that. Or you could just look it up yourself. I mean, I honestly don't know why a camera's manufacture date is relevant. Unless you just like knowing that fact, in which case Ken Rockwell, Uncle Ken, can probably tell you himself when something was produced. This is, I believe, a later model camera, as indicated by this. The original Konica Hexars, I believe, and that when I believe that it's one of my friends who had one. When he had done his deep dive in before buying one, he said that he had read that the later model cameras had this little lip right here around the lens release button. And I've found them on eBay. I found them around without that, and I found them with that, and I haven't found anything to back that up. So I am going to do what a 2024 millennial would do and wildly believe whatever my friend tells me, because then I don't have to do any actual research myself. That's not true. I did actually try and find that. I could not find that anywhere, but I didn't really look that hard because why did I need to find that? So, as I said, this has auto advance, auto shutter cocking, which I think it just, cocks anyway, and auto rewind. It goes from 6 ISO to 6400 ISO. It has exposure compensation, +2, -2. It has auto exposure and auto exposure lock, which is what I shoot the camera in. I'm not shooting this camera so that I can decide the shutter speeds manually. If I wanted to do that, I would shoot my MP. I would have shot like an M2 or an M6 or something along those lines. I bought this camera because it is so advanced and because I don't want to do all of the thinking. If I want to under or overexpose an image, or honestly what I generally do is if I want to under or overexpose something by a stop or two, I will take a meter reading through the lens. Yeah, is it through the lens? It's a real melon scratcher. Yeah, it's through the lens. I believe the meter reads off of the shutter curtains, like most of these styles of cameras. You take a meter reading of the subject you want, you get that meter reading, say 1/250th of a second. You find somewhere in the scene that's 1/125th or 1/60th of a second, you half press the shutter, you go back to your original framing, boom, 2 stops difference. You want to go the other way, you find somewhere that's 1/1000th of a second in the scene, boom, you do it that way. Or I can under and overexpose here if I really want to. I didn't do a ton of that. I generally just believe the meter or expose for the part of the scene that I want. But that is a way that I would do it instead of using this. But it is nice to have this. It does go from B in 1 second, bulb, as they say, and 1 second, all the way up to 1/4000th of a second, which is super nice for anybody who wants to shoot faster speed film or faster lenses during the day. I really this was probably the main reason I kept this camera for so long, was because I have a 21mm f1.4 and hey, I got a text, and a 40mm f1.2, and shooting them in the day with 800 speed double X or something along those lines, HP5, without having to use ND filters was really awesome. And sometimes it's just really nice to take out a camera that does not require advancing the shutter, figuring out what shutter speed. Sometimes it's nice to take a camera that is basically a somewhat more of a point and shoot than this little guy here. So this is what the shutter sounds like at 4,000th, 2,000th. You don't need to hear all of them, but it is, like I said, an electronically controlled, vertically traveling shutter. Look at that. Look right at it. Or don't, I'm not your boss. And camera's all metal construction. I don't know what kind of metal. I don't care what kind of metal. It's metal. Metal everywhere, except for the rubbery front and back, which have raised, embossed, whatever you want to call it, areas which provide extra grip. Ooh, 1/4 of a second. The world we're living in. It has single for one shot. Press and hold the shutter. It only shoots one. It has continuous. I don't know how many frames a second that is. Maybe it's a million. It's probably closer to 2 frames a second. Maybe 1. It also has a self timer, which that's what that little light is right there, to let you know that, hey fam, start hugging up on each other and putting your bunny ears behind your dad. We're taking the self timer button. It has a, hey, another text message. It has the battery indicator and the frame counter on the top here. Uses 2 CR2 batteries, which is right here. It tripod mount. I don't put my camera, my 35mm on a tripod. I don't see a purpose for it. It has a frame, 3 separate frame selections that have 2 frame lines for each. It automatically does it with my lenses. I don't really pay that much attention to it. I'm not someone who is extremely picky with my framing. You have, on the side, you have a shutter release cable, which again, I don't put this on a tripod. I'll just put my medium formats on a tripod. I think that the big advantage of a 35mm camera is using it on or using faster lenses and the compact nature of it. So putting it on a tripod to me defeats the purpose. I'll just put my Rolly or my Hasselblad on a tripod instead of this. Not going to do it. It has a film door instead of the antiquated and frankly silly bottom plate of the Leica that Leica purists seem to really think is amazing when it's not. This is easy. Put the film in, stretch it across, put it in there, close this bad Larry up, and it auto winds on. It's great. It has a film rewind if you want to rewind early. And I really think that's it. It has, on the left side of the viewfinder, it has your shutter speeds. If you are shooting, for example, at 2/50th, and the meter is saying, hey, idiot, this scene should be metered at 1/30th, you're shooting at 2/50th, what are you doing? It'll tell you that. It'll say, it'll have 250 here, and then it'll have 30th flashing, or whatever it thinks the scene should be metered at. Strap lugs. Don't really use straps that much, although lately I have been. One of the main downsides of this camera, aside from it being electronic, which I don't really view as a downside because the thing is built well and it's going to work. It's going to continue to work. I've never heard of any one of them breaking. I'm sure some have broken, but mechanical cameras break too. So I think you should buy what you want. You should use what you want and not worry about things breaking all the time. It's not a point and shoot camera. It's a well-built professional piece of equipment. But one of the things that is a big problem, oh, there's a hot shoe. One of the things that is a big problem with this camera, if you're buying one, is this. There is a diopter. And the diopter on this camera, unlike many other cameras, which just provide either a little extra protection or, you know, rubber, whatever, the diopter on this camera is actually a lens for, or yeah, a lens, whatever you want to call it, for the viewfinder. So if you do not have this diopter, which this one's a 0 diopter, no correction, you cannot use the viewfinder. It is blurry because a part of the lens is missing. And when I bought this camera, it did not have that viewfinder or that diopter, so I could not use the viewfinder. I scoured everywhere for it. I could not find any on eBay. I think I ended up spending $180 on just this diopter from someone in China who was making them new with different levels of correction. I can link that in the video description if you would like. I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care what you like. I'm going to do it. Yeah. It's 1/25th of a second. 1/125th. Sync speed for the flash. Like I said, I don't really use flash. If you need to adjust the rangefinder, right there. I have never had to adjust the rangefinder. Everything about this camera has just worked really well for me. I just don't use it. I don't really feel that I need to continue to keep a camera that I do not use. So I sold it last night and we'll just continue to use this in its stead. Had I not bought this, which, like I said, I bought it as a congratulations for being somewhat successful, which I no longer am, I would likely have just kept this and only shot this. I do think that advancing film is kind of fun. I do think that owning a Leica is kind of nice. I do like this camera, but objectively, I feel like this camera is well more advanced, way better, and I don't see why more people don't use and appreciate these Hexars, because they are absolutely amazing. I kind of wish I hadn't sold it. I had intended on keeping it and using only fast lenses on it, but then I figured, screw it, I'm just going to sell it. Someone on Reddit's asking about it, so they're getting it now. Alrighty-o. I'm going to pretend I know how to edit this. Music.